Hey, I wanted to make a video to look into this late 50s Valco 1615 amp, which is a 115 amp they sold under the Oahu brand. You may not be familiar, but Valco was an OEM amp and guitar manufacturer who made amps for Gretsch, Oahu, National, Vega, several other brands, while at the same time selling their own guitars and amps as Supro, which are more famous. But if you look around, you can find the off-brand ones, which often are the same circuits. So this one is a 1615, which is a 115. Jimmy Page's famous Supro, which everyone has talked about, the Thunderbolt or a variety of different ones, the 1624. He actually used a 1690, which was a 210. Somehow his got damaged, the speakers broke, it got a new baffle with a 112. And he's always said there were mysterious mods made, but they're kind of unspecified. I'd be really interested to see inside one of those new Sun Dragons to see exactly what they changed, or if they changed anything. My amp has had one mod. I added cathode bypass caps, which is just a single capacitor. I think I added it on the preamp tubes and the power tubes, but that adds a little bit more gain. So, it's not boosted gain like you see on a Marshall with a cascaded input or something like that, but it's a touch more grit to the amp. This one has 606G B tubes, which were the older version of 606s that evolved into the 606G C. So I think Valco was using a slightly cheaper tube at the time. The GBs have a little less power. I think they also have different impedance requirements, so maybe that is part of the mod on Pages. It was supposed to be a GB and he's using a GC, which is driving the amp harder because the power supply I don't think makes enough power for GCs to run, at least as they're expecting to be ran. I actually have a 2020 era Sola Sound MKII Tonebender built by DAM, so the real deal Tonebender. And then this Telecaster is a parts caster I built years ago with the MJT body, all parts neck that I painted. And then it has Don Mare Zep pickups, which are excellent late 50s style Tele pickups. And I had the amp mic'd with the older Sony C38B. And that's going into a AML 1073 clone, which is a nice 1073 preamp. The way of miking the amp like this with a condenser is an older technique that kind of went away. At some point, everyone decided you needed to use a Royer with a MD21 or a SM57 right on the cone, and that was the only way to do guitar. But in the 60s and the 70s, they did a lot more experimenting. So you find mic techniques like this, and I think it sounds great. All right, anyways, that's enough talking about all this. I just wanted to show you some of these tones and ape some of the Zeppelin 1 Jimmy Page tricks with this old Supro. Here we go. So one of the things about the MK2, when you have them turned all the way up, they're quite compressed, and that's a cool sound. But it also gets that squishy compression, which makes it less useful in some instances, especially like I don't really hear that on Zeppelin 1 at all. However, I do hear it rolled down a little bit. You know, the fuzz face and the MK 1.5 are famous for having great roll down into pure clean tones. And actually some of the best crystalline clean tones you'll hear are with the fuzz face rolled back. But the MK2 doesn't do that. All the way rolled back. It's still quite fuzzy, but that's a really cool sound, and it's less compressed. Let's see here. So with the fuzz turned off. So this Supro is actually on the bigger side of Supro amps. You know, Paige would say he used a little Supro, but I have several of these, including a 1x6 tiny Supro, and they're quite different on the larger amps. You know, it reminds me more of like a Tweed Fender, and it does have more bass response, and it kind of holds in there. This is about 20 something watts, I would say, so it's efficient enough to play with the band, no problem. And it's just a really great amp overall. Also, not just for the Jimmy Page stuff, you know, just pure kind of middle of the ground rock tone. And also, this is not cranked all the way up, it's about halfway. I'll go all the way. So this is all the way. So really great amp, even for things other than the Led Zeppelin thing. And honestly, I think I like it more for that Americana kind of middle of the ground rock stuff. And like you heard with the boost, that pushes it up into kind of the next zone of gain and into that Marshall-y kind of rock stuff. So I love the old Supros. I think you can see why. Thanks.